A story is known as an account of imaginary or real people and events. Standardly, this is usually told of the shining main character within a chronological order, from the beginning, middle, and end. Now, walk with me here. What if someone decided it's not enough and unraveled the cloth of storytelling, tangling into a ball of yarn? Now imagine you take that same ball of yarn to make the same story in the same size and shape, but you felt a little bit silly, so you decide to add another yarn from a completely different country. Matter of fact, you decide to add multiple pieces of yarn from multiple different origins to weave the cloth we call a story into a completely new experience. This style of storytelling is known as a multi-strand narrative. A multi-strand or hyperlink narrative is a nonlinear narrative story technique that is focused on putting two or more storylines within a single film. These plotlines, even though they have independent progressions, they are still related to each other as they help to birth a more interesting narrative. It can be said that this style of storytelling went all the way back to ancient times. A source example of this is an Indian epic that I won't attempt to pronounce the name of, so I'll just put it on the screen here. And a next, more universal example that wouldn't come to mind for more people is actually the Bible. And I would explain a bit more, but that's a bit of a sensitive topic, so we'll end that there. This multi-strand narrative style, however, came into prominence around the 19th century in form of novels written by a man named Charles Dickens called Bleak House. The Bleak House is a complex novel that criticizes the British legal system. The story centers around a never-ending lawsuit which involves a disputed inheritance which ruins the lives of those caught up in it. Through a wide cast ranging from corrupt lawyers, desperate suitors,
choose me, love me,
to noble benefactors and tragic figures, Dickens paints a vivid picture of Victorian society. It's also most notable for its dual narrative, one in the main character's third-person voice and another in their first-person voice, which was very innovative for the time. Then finally, this story technique was brought to fruition on the big screen by the 1916 movie Intolerance by D.W. Griffith. Intolerance is a silent film that explores the destructive impact of intolerance throughout human history. The film weaves together four parallel storylines from different eras. Modern America, where a young couple struggles with poverty and injustice, facing false accusations and the cruelty of reformers. Judeo-Christianity, the story of Jesus Christ and his crucifixion. The 16th century France, which depicts the St. Bartholomew Days massacre, where Protestants were slaughtered by Catholics. And ancient Babylon, which dictates the fall of Babylon due to religious conflict and betrayal. Griffith cuts between these stories using a symbolic image of a woman rocking a cradle, representing the passage of time. The film was a response to criticisms of his earlier work, Birth of a Nation, and it aimed to promote a message of compassion and understanding across cultures and eras. A few narrative and cinematic conventions of the multi-strand narrative are ones such as intercutting. Intercutting, the act of transitioning between scenes, whether through seamless transitions or abrupt cuts, is a cinematic device that takes full advantage of the visual medium, allowing for the audience to be relaxed as the story unfolds before their eyes, as a couple reminiscing on their days of crime is interesting, if not strange, but when we're stolen away to be introduced to a pair of hitmen on a job, well, that would grab anyone's attention. So, using such contrast such as this, Quentin Tarantino compounds a fractured yet interwoven narrative throughout the story Pulp Fiction. This is within the same vein as the many, and I mean many, narratives that would unfold through Nashville. There are 24 main characters. Hold on. Did I read this right? There's 24 main characters? Who the We follow many a persona during the film's runtime, yet they all serve to characterize the town itself and its music. And that is exactly what it does by moving between a singer's entourage basking in moments of fun and a neglected wife fleeing her husband. Now, let's look at the use of motifs. This is a repeated pattern in a story, whether it be an image, sound, word, or symbol, that comes back again and again. Within this narrative, they act as bridges from separate storylines as a reminder to the audience of the other plots taking place. Examples such as Pulp Fiction, with the use of intertitles to remind the audience of whose situation we're in, and City of God, which makes use of freeze frames and narration to give additional context to scenes by showing flashbacks or different perspectives afterwards. And most importantly is the use of the parallel plotlines themselves. These allow two or more characters to pursue different goals and allow the story to tackle multiple themes at different paces at the same time. These plotlines or narratives can even contrast or complement each other, permitting the story to even critique itself. But that is not what takes place in Nashville. Instead, all the characters, all 24 of them, are used to contrast each other and put on full display the tools of one's own decisions, whether it be womanizing, running away, drinking. The narratives pull to the forefront all the different ways people can end up in the same place, whether physically or mentally. And then there's Pulp Fiction that uses the parallel storylines to portray different sides of human nature, with Vincent continuing his life as a hitman and then coming to an unfortunate end, and Jules walking away after an extremely close encounter. So, why does any of this matter? Because multi-strand narratives don't just tell one story. They challenge us to see how stories collide, echo, and reflect off each other. They mirror real life, messy, overlapping, and full of different perspectives. So even though the thread may tangle, it weaves into something more powerful, a story greater than the sum of its parts.